Hello there, today I am here to bring you the first half of my December reading. It hasn't gone too badly so far this month, it's been pretty standard. I've managed to find quite a lot of time to read, so let's get straight into it. The first book I read was Our Endless Numbered Days by Claire Fuller. This has been around for quite a while now, probably about 2 years, which is quite scary. I bought it not long after it came out and I just haven't gotten around to reading it. I kind of thought that I might not enjoy it, but I wasn't feeling very well this month. And I just wanted something that was quite easy and fun to read, and also it looks kind of Christmassy with the trees, and I don't know if you can see there's like snow on the cover, and it was actually much better than I thought. So within this we follow Peggy. We meet her first when she's about 17 I think, and it's clear that she's come home after being away for a long time, and then we sort of flash between 17-year-old Peggy and her 8-year-old self and sort of follow what happened and where she's been, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say that she has been with her father, who told her that the world had ended and took her to a cabin in the woods to live. I think most people already know that about this book. As you can see, it's a short read, so it's quite sparse in the information. You know, you don't get really rich descriptions of their life in the forest, considering they're there for like 9 years or something. But actually I thought it worked quite nicely. We just got sort of key trigger points, and this is actually much darker at places than you would expect it. Although it is an easy read, it's definitely not a light one, and it does discuss some really dark issues. There is a kind of, I think it's meant to be a twist at the end, which I kind of saw coming from the very beginning really, and I don't think that it was that well hidden. But I also appreciate how it was done, and I still think the reveal had a lot of impact. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by this. I heard mixed things. I know some people really loved it and it became quite big, but other people said that they were really disappointed, and a lot of people have said that they don't like Claire Fuller's writing style. For me, there was nothing not to like about it. It was fine. The only criticism I would have for this book is that it is kind of like a lot of books that have gone before it, but then I don't think that's necessarily fair to compare. But obviously it parallels with Room by Emma Donoghue, and there was also moments in there that I thought about The Road by Cormac McCarthy, but I think it stood up on its own as well, and I would definitely recommend reading it. It's not the biggest commitment, so it's worth a go. Then I finished Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I did start reading this before Our Endless Numbered Days, but because I wasn't feeling well, it was just far too heavy. Sadly, even coming back to this, I kind of didn't overly get along with it. This is one of those books that I've wanted to read for a very, very long time. It's obviously a classic, and one that, you know, you kind of feel like you should read because it's referenced. Emma Bovary is referenced in just popular culture and films and whatnot. But for me it just kind of fell really flat. There was a period in the middle where I was like, yes, this is what I was hoping from this book, but the beginning and the end kind of just didn't do it for me. I think the problem is that the writing was stunning. Do not get me wrong, the writing was really, really good. And there were passages in here that were just astounding. But for the most part, the characterisation was really quite weak. I didn't particularly warm to Emma herself. The whole premise was a bit wishy-washy for me. So beginning, we meet a man called Charles, and he falls in love with a woman called Emma, and they get married. And as soon as they're married, we sort of switch to Emma's perspective, and it's all about how she hates being married and she doesn't know why she married him. And to begin with, I kind of got it. You know, she rushed into it, she probably didn't think about it enough, and she kind of felt trapped in this unhappy relationship, or, you know, what she perceived to be an unhappy relationship. But then the whole book is about that, and her sort of love affairs with other men, and then periods where she tries to love her husband. But the thing is, because her character wasn't developed and because her husband's character really wasn't developed, you couldn't really see what was so terrible about this marriage. It didn't go into their relationship in any way, shape or form. It sort of spans a long period of years, without really explaining what happens within them. I just felt like, for one, I didn't understand why she was so unhappy in this relationship with her husband. I needed more. And also, she wasn't a sympathetic character. She wasn't very pleasant, and she was kind of shallow. She didn't have any depth for me. Like, considering her actions throughout, she should have had a lot more depth. She's obviously a woman with a brain on her, a woman who sort of fights against being confined by men in a way, but yeah, it just pushed onto the 3-star mark because of the middle period, but the rest of it I just found really, really weak, I'm afraid. Then I finished an audiobook called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. I must have downloaded this a long time ago because it was well back in my library, and I thought I would just shove it on for some easy listening during my Christmas work, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. Now I will say it's no different to your normal self-help book. It had the same points and it did repeat them, which I often find is the case in this kind of self-help book. But it was so lovely. Jen Sincero narrates it herself, which I think makes a huge difference, as I've spoken about before in audiobooks. And it was just so fun and so inspiring, and it makes you feel good about yourself. And it reminds you to just be yourself and be happy in yourself and be confident, and how to sort of improve your life in small ways. There is, as you can probably guess, some spiritual elements in here, but I think as spiritually self-help books go, this is a really accessible one, because Jen Sincero says, you know, for her it was God, but for anybody else it could be the universe or your own happiness. You know, it's just this higher power that you are trying to acknowledge, I suppose, just like whatever you want it to be, and I think it's much more accessible for your everyday person because Jen Sincero isn't preachy or, you know, over the top with it at all. So yes, I would really recommend this. It was really lovely and cheered me up every day that I listened to it. Then I read my library pick and non-fiction for the month, which was Will Schwab's The End of Your Life book club. I picked this up on a complete whim at the library. I didn't necessarily expect it to be that good. I kind of thought it would just be a sweet, kind of gentle read, but I actually really thoroughly enjoyed this. It was just a really fun and comforting read, though it was quite hard-hitting and sad at the same time. This is a non-fiction which sort of documents Will Schwab's mother when she's diagnosed with cancer, and during her chemo sessions her and Will end up developing a book club. This is just a book about the books that they spoke about, and obviously his mother's decline, you know, from the very off they know that she's not going to get better. It is just preventative treatment, so obviously this does get quite upsetting at times, but it's really lovely and I think it's so heartwarming and wonderful. Will Schwab really looks at the way that him and his mum had kind of trouble talking about the actual death situation. You know, they kind of skirted around it and didn't necessarily address it head on, but within the books that they read they really tackled the issue of death and kind of sent each other messages through the books that they made each other read, and it was just a wonderful read. I think any book lover would enjoy this. I didn't particularly like the books that they spoke about, most of them, although some have now gone on my wish list, but I don't think that's the point. I think this is just a wonderful story about how books can bring people together and make life that bit easier in the dark times. And then finally I read Hotel World by Ali Smith. This was a wonderful read, and I'm really glad I picked it up. I've had a few dodgy Ali Smiths this year. Not dodgy I suppose, but certainly not up to the standard of The Accidental, which I read a few years ago and adored. And this was definitely a step back in that direction for me. So it looks at the lives of 5 different people, and the very first section is a girl who is working in a hotel and she has died. We know that she's died. It's her spirit that's speaking to us, sort of helping us to unravel what's happened. So she dies when she's on a shift in the hotel, and we then look at 4 other people whose lives are impacted by what's happened to her in some way or another, and it's just so good. It's so well written. It's very experimental. I would say it actually reminded me a lot of Even the Dogs by John McGregor, in terms of the fact that it's kind of an incident and then it looks at the ripples of that incident, and you know, the people that we meet aren't necessarily attached to the girl who has died. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but you see the implications of what's happened and the sort of butterfly effect of what happened. It's just so well written. Every section has a really different style and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It's also a really quick read. It's only short and it's got typical Ali Smith, quite big writing to sell this, because you know, nothing can sell a book better than Ali Smith. I'm going to read you a section. There were a lot of sections in here that I absolutely loved, but one was: she has shattered her insides living the way she is. She knows she has. It isn't funny. It comes over her like misery. She has broken her insides, burnt them out, then heaped them over with ground as if to stop the burning. Just, oh, who wouldn't want to read a book like that? No, seriously though, I think if you enjoyed Even the Dogs, you would probably enjoy this, though be warned, it is more experimental, but it's still a really easy read. That's what I find with Ali Smith. She plays with language a lot, but she still makes it accessible. And also, if you enjoyed The Accidental, you will probably like this one. So that was all my reads for the first half of December. As I say, I'm quite happy with those. I hope everyone is enjoying this running up to the Christmas season. Please let me know down below what you have been reading, and I'll see you next time. Bye.